Holy smokes, folks. It's raining cats and dogs once again. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for our second episode of this program. In the week past and the weeks in the future, our normal format is going to be we will have 4 coaches from both Kirksville High School as well as Truman State University. But tonight we have a little bit of a special episode with Kirksville's season having freshly come to a close and Truman's season nearing its football end. We brought in both of the Nesbitts. Greg Nesbitt, head coach for the Kirksville High School football team, to my right, and Coach Kellen Nesbitt for the Truman State University Bulldogs to my left. And as always, thank you once again for joining us for what we believe can really be a bastion for unique insights and opportunities for coaches to elevate their athletes, speak on their philosophies, and really give us a chance inside of their coaching brains. Thank you guys for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us, Henry.
It's good to be here. Appreciate it.
Exactly. Appreciate what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. And Greg, having just finished up your second season with Kirksville High School football, walk me through a little bit what these first 2 years have just been like in general back at the high school level.
Well, it's certainly re-energized me, if you will. It's back, went full circle. Started at Hannibal in the fall of 1980, a year or two ago, and retired from public ed in 2005. And I think the biggest thing, Henry, coming back to the high school age, one, I love the kids. The kids are awesome, and people all the time talk about how kids have changed. They haven't changed a bit. The world around them has changed vastly. They still want the same thing. They want to be coached, taught, loved on, rebuked, all that type of stuff. But probably the biggest issue, I was talking to Jacob hope I said your name right, Jacob, of the air, was the communication skills. There's a lot of difference talking to particularly a 14, 15, 16-year-old age young man compared to, now what Kellen's doing is visiting with the 18 and 19-year-olds or the immature ones, So that's certainly been challenging and been fun. The coaching adage is it's never easy, always fun, and that's been the case for me over the last 2 years.
And that's kind of the insight you've given me about these kids over the course of not just this year, but also last year. Just kind of what is the general vibe going to be when you are hosting these exit interviews with these kids postseason, and just what are the things that you want them to carry with them coming off of the 2025 season?
Well, our guys are so, size of school, Kirksville High, these guys they're 2 and 3 sport guys. So exit conferences are more what up Kellen's TL to grab young guys when I can. But, one, I hope they continue to enjoy it. We didn't have the year winning and losing that we had certainly in the first year. But probably what I was most pleased with this past season was just our participation. We were up to 74, 75 guys, and I think they only had 72 lockers. We had to order some lockers, and that's a good problem to have. And so the enthusiasm was good. I hope it hasn't waned. I think the guys still enjoyed the year, and we still had our fair share of success along the way.
And just first things first, immediately coming off of Friday's game in Mexico, disappointing ending of the season, of course. I thought that after giving up the opening score, you guys played a very solid remainder of the first half. Talk to me a little bit about the things that you can build on for these guys who are going to return next year and what you're going to carry with you on. I think that there were innumerable positives that were maybe a little bit outweighed by the outcomes of some of these games, but I think you liked what you saw a lot.
I did. And, turning a culture into an expectation level, the standard, Kellen had an interview earlier this year with KTVO, and they talked about the expectation levels. They're going to have a chance to be 1-0 every week, from the top to the bottom. And right now, that is a work in progress with our kids and the confidence level, Henry, that goes with it. Because our guys, when you go to the first Mexico game, conference game, regular season, we lose 14-0. We ran 60-some plays to their 30-some. Centralia, 20-17 in our senior night. Another 60-snap game to 30-snap game. We're a bit more aggressive, controlling the tempo of the game. And yet it's the confidence level, collective confidence of our kids. It's almost like they're waiting for, you as a longtime Kirksville, with something bad to happen. You know what I mean? And that takes time. At Hannibal, when I took that job in '84, it wasn't a football town, and it was a 4-year deal, and we were 20 to turn it around, and we were 27-3 there the last 3 years, and it's been football ever since. And Columbia Hickman, that was a 4-year turnaround, and that ended up being, Kellen got to play during that reign. It's a good amen out of him. We're top 5, 10 in Missouri the last 8 consecutive and 10 of the last 12. So once you get it turned, and that expectation is, okay, the football game is liked. It's ups and downs, and the guys that can handle the lower pyramids better than the others generally have a better chance for success. And right now, we're still on that roller coaster. And the kids their effort, their work ethic, Henry, it's fun for me to come to practice every day. We've got no attitudes. They got better, and that. As you watched them from the making game, the first game of the year, we were infinitely better. And I don't care what level you're coaching. That's all that we as coaches, deep down to our core, that's our expectation level. And we do want to win more when we lose, and certainly win the games we're capable of winning.
I think that's one thing we've talked about before. So this group of seniors for you finishes your tenure, their junior and senior years finished 13-7. The 5 teams that you lost to this year are really good teams. Dating back to Macon, they thrashed Mark Twain last weekend, and they move on to face Brookfield in a district semi that could be really fun. Savannah's only loss all year was to St. Pius X in double overtime. Hannibal lost to Helias by 3 and Fort Zumwalt by 3. A Mexico team that exactly how you matched up with them 2 different times, and a Centralia team who only had a 4-point loss to Monroe City the entire season. So those are 5 really good football teams. What would you say in that regard, just in terms of the strength of schedule and kind of using that as an encouragement point for the dudes who are going to return next year?
It's a good point. I think that, a couple things jump out is one, a kudos to Sarah Williams to be able to put together a schedule. Hopefully we can continue a competitive schedule, and particularly with the North Central disbanding, and players and coaches shouldn't shy away from competition. And then with that, it's okay to expect to win in those ball games. I'm not a guy philosophically who thinks winning's everything. I think trying to is. And, once, if you're a process guy and really take care of the process it takes to be successful, I don't care the sport, the winning generally takes care of itself. And while it was a challenging schedule, we're proud of that. We left some W's out on the field, no question. Our kids understand that. So it's, you either get right back to work, you learn, immediately flush it, keep getting better, or you end up losing consistently. And I don't think that's going to be the case.
What are some of the things that you would like to hit on in this offseason for your kids who are returning? And what are some specific points of emphasis between now and when practice begins early next August?
Yeah. We'll continue, this last year is the first year that we really had a full off season, of training in the weight room. And, a lot of our guys they're going right to basketball or wrestling right now. So we don't have as many kids that are a one sport, and that's good. That's okay. But for the kids that are, I think, continuing to make strides physically, and then also with just your investment, your sweat equity, it makes it more difficult to give up. I don't know if give up's the proper word, but certainly makes it more important to be successful once you get in season, when you invested your sweat through the off season. So continuing on those realms. And then we haven't done anything competitively in the summer. We may rethink that. If I had anything to do with this differently, there's a lot that I would for this last group. Always open to learn. I don't care how old or gray you are. I would have played some football last summer. It was such a young group. They needed to play football. Whether it's some 7-on-7s, a team camp, that type of stuff. And he knows me. I'm about as anti that type of stuff. I think kids need to be kids, and we as coaches have robbed them about it. The flip side is we couldn't make enough strides those first 2 or 3 weeks to catch guys up competitively. So we got out of the gate.
And speaking of that from a philosophical standpoint, let me introduce you for a second, Kellen. I know that you love these multi-sport kids when you're on the recruiting trail. And so when we're talking about things that you may or may not have done in the summer, well, that goes a long way. Maybe you couldn't hold such an event a basketball camp or whatever it might be. So when you are looking at these multi-sport kids from Greg's standpoint, kind of what are you looking for in that regard?
Well, I think that the one thing that, there's a lot of stuff you can teach them, that you can coach them, once they get to you, whether it's at the high school level, at the college level, from fundamentals and schematics and all that thing. But some of the hardest things to teach is how to compete, and the multi-sport guys get the opportunity to get exposed to so many different competitive situations, team sports versus individual sports, and everything that goes with it. So I think those experiences, as they learn to become competitors and how to compete and how to find ways to win, I think those are invaluable, and I think they translate across the board. And ultimately for us, we want to get as many highly competitive people as possible, into the program. So IDing those multi-sport guys does go a long way.
One thing that I want to jump back to, I was remiss not to ask you about this when you brought it up, just talking about scheduling and the work that that Sarah Williams did over the course of the off season to put all the schedules together. But what happens with the dissolution of the NCMC, as you had pointed out? And with Kirksville, we kind of exist in kind of no man's land as far as Misha is concerned. For you as a coach, I know some of these things are beyond your control, but what would you like to see schedules look like as NCMC goes its separate ways?
There's, when you say what you'd like it to look like, really doesn't matter, because of the first part of what you said is geographically, Kirksville in northeast Missouri, geographically, you've got to want to come here. As a Class 4 school, without a conference in football, you're relegated to driving to St. Louis or Kansas City to find similar-sized schools, and they may or may not wish to make that trip. So you're really, beggars can't be choosy. Your options, I explore our options, they're limited. So I'm hopeful that sometime in the future for Kirksville High School that there's another conference on the horizon, and football is just a small piece of the puzzle. To me, if you're Sarah, you've got all, basketball, volleyball, softball, track and field, baseball, all those sports, and trying to put that together becomes you got to work a pretty good jigsaw puzzle, to get that done. So I've been at Hannibal where we didn't have a league, and it's a tough deal. I was at Hannibal when we came into the North Central in 1985.
Really?
Yeah, we were first without, then we're in 5-team Illinois League, and once again, football can generally cobble something together, but your other sports, it's challenging, and this disillusion, I'm not certain I would have ever the powers to be to decide they want to dissolve it. I would have never done that. It has them without having another conference ready to go. And it's going to be the same for all of them. And this was a football-driven disillusionment, if you will. I think Hannibal even offered to stay non-football, and this one the other sports. So time will tell, but I hope that some of these schools circle back around and end up reforming some sort of conference in the future for not just Kirksville's kids, but all kids in those schools.
To your point, putting a football schedule together is 9 regular season games, and then your district folds as it may. But you think about softball and basketball, that's 10 guaranteed games that are off the schedule for a home and home with your conference opponents. So that's a very good point that you bring up. Kellen, talk to me a little bit about, let's move on to the Dogs for a second. Talk to me a little bit about last week's commanding victory in Lincoln to spoil their homecoming. And just putting up points all over the place and playing really, really good football coming off of a bye a handful of weeks ago.
It was a lot of fun. We've been playing pretty decent football, for an extended period. And it's been, the guys are continuing to really prepare well on a week-to-week basis. Offensively, I think it's been particularly impressive, because college football in general is such a physical sport. It's difficult to keep your guys healthy week in and week out. We've had a revolving door of wide receiver, running back, and tight ends this season. The glue has been Dylan Hare and Austin Zoda, those two guys working together. but their ability to move the ball and score points with who's available on any given Saturday has been pretty impressive, and it kind of changes on a week-to-week basis on who's been able to explode for us. And this week we spread it around to a lot of guys. It felt like once it really got rolling this week, everybody was having fun touching the football and everybody wanted to touch it, because it was kind of rolling, as it was going right there. But it's been very impressive to see the balance and how many different guys have positively affected and made plays so far this season on offense. It's been cool to see.
And talk to me a little bit about Hare and his improvements, not only in terms of ability, but also in terms of just composure. And like you say, him and Zoda interacting in kind of a way where they are the engine and make this thing go. Talk to me a little bit about those two.
Well, he's so talented. I was having a good time with the ball boys from Lincoln, on the sideline. They were calling him Johnny Manziel. I think you guys got Johnny Manziel. That's he kind of, he is Mr. Football. He's so talented, but even more so than his talent and his ability is how competitive he is. There's just nobody. If you've got a habit on a money down, third down, fourth down, red zone play, you want the ball in his hands. He's kind of just got the it factor to figure it out and find a way. Even if it's not going how you anticipated it going, on that individual play. So he's got that. And then now you're into year two, however many consecutive starts he is, 20 consecutive starts with the same offensive coordinator. They've got an offense, they've got a system there. He's learning, he's playing faster and faster and faster with his decision making and all the on rhythm, just flow of an offense. And then you combine that with what he can do when the play breaks down, and he just gets a little more dangerous every week. So he's a true point guard type quarterback. He can go score it himself if he needs to, but he can also spread it around to everybody. And I shouldn't want to try and defend him. He's definitely given defenses problems.
One thing specifically that I would say is we have seen him trust his legs more than he did when he was younger. If there's nothing there, it's just his football, and he's going to find a way to grind 3 or 4 yards out of it. Is that just an instinct thing predominantly, or is that something you guys have specifically worked on there?
I think it's a combination. I think that he's got great instincts for when to run it, and I think he's an excellent. He has good vision. He's a good ball carrier. He can make guys miss in space and in small spaces. And then I think that him and Coach Zoda have worked hard on recognizing what fronts and coverages are advantageous to scramble into and what fronts and coverages will be a little more difficult. And he's gotten smarter at recognizing when, particularly, without getting too into the nitty gritty, but 4-man rushes and teams playing man to man, and particularly when we're getting our running backs out into the concept, they're running out of people and you don't want to have your back to them, and then he sees that and he starts to get excited, and then he starts to go make some plays. And then we've done a good job. Coach Zoda's done a good job incorporating more legitimate triple option type stuff into the offense to allow him to get going that way. This week at Lincoln, he wasn't throwing the ball particularly well in the first quarter. Sometimes that happens with Q's. He missed a couple guys, and we ran a few option plays. He made some plays with his legs, converted a few things, got himself into flow, and then I think he hit Gruey on a wheel, to get going. Then all of a sudden the passing was going along with what was going with the lower half. So sometimes those legs can help get him into game flow and get his playmaker side kicked in, as we're going.
And I would like for people to kind of understand that when you see games where you score 45, 48, 59, whatever it might be, that you're assuming that you're throwing the thing around the yard, throwing the thing around the yard for 400 plus yards, but it's not that. It's full on complimentary football that goes into these high scores. And it was good to see Denham healthy, nothing too serious.
No, yeah, he was back, and probably wasn't at 100%, but good enough to play, at this point in his career, and it was good to see him bust a long one. So the balance, to your point, of being able to run the football makes any offense more dangerous, particularly Dylan, who wants to have that balance and that kind of point guard spread it around. So when we're blocking well, when our O-line and tight ends are creating creases and our backs are making things happen, it really makes Dylan that much more dangerous as we start getting into the mix and in and out of run and pass. And I've thought for first 2 years as a play caller, I thought Coach Zoda's had a great feel, for mixing and matching and when to get in and out. So he keeps the defense guessing for sure.
talk a little bit about kind of the point you're at with two games left to be played, being ranked regionally, kind of being able to control your own destiny, or at least control what you can control. With losses just to Washburn, which seems like a year ago, and then a 1AA program, and then Indy. And since then, I think that a little bit of respect has been put on the GLBC, more so this year than in years past. Talk to me about what those regional rankings really mean, what they mean to you, what they mean to the team, and just take care of business and see what happens from there.
Yeah, I think, we've always had, and this is really ever since I've been working with Dad and Coach Fritz before that, I've been, any program I've been a part of, you're so just focused. Like right now, we're focused on William Jewell, trying to be 1-0, and you just put everything you got that week. I mean, just literally pour everything you got into trying to be 1-0 for that week, and celebrate for a little bit if you get the goal, at 1-0, and then you flip the page and you're on to the next one. So I can't honestly say I've sat back and reflected. I think the regional rankings, one, I think it shows that you got a good football team. I think it shows that you're consistently winning. We've been winning now consistently for about a 5-6 year run. So I think people are more used to seeing Truman State University up at the top of the GLBC, hunting around the top 25. We've had postseason success in the American Crossroads Bowl. So I do feel like it's a culmination, and we're certainly very, very proud, to have our name in there. And now, I don't know if we control our own destiny or not. I think we're the only 2-loss team in that top 10 right now. So you need some teams to lose. We need some company in the 2-loss club. And then we need the ranking. We got to win. You got to take care of business. So let's just start with another win against Jewell and go from there. But it's certainly nice to be right there, and it gives you some excitement. It's a long season. We reported on August 5th. You've got a handful of days off for the players and even less for the coaches. So competitive endurance becomes a legitimate thing. College football is a grind. Better love ball. You're going to go through this right there, but a little bit of carrot at the end of the stick right now. There's something there still, so it keeps you enthused as you keep trying to play the standard, keep trying to put your good todays together. Today plus today plus today is your season, is your career. So it's definitely gives some added enthusiasm down the stretch when you feel like you're still in the hunt.
One thing that I have always wondered for you guys, when it comes to not necessarily just straight up record and things like that, but there is a committee. Think back to Upper Iowa for a second. You as a coach, does it make a difference to you when it comes to regional rankings that was a commanding win rather than maybe just winning by a field goal at the buzzer?
Since we had the commanding win, I'd hope so. I might think differently if I was on the other side of it. So, but I think that at the end of the day, I don't put a whole lot of. There's only so much you can control. There's so much that you need to get done, that I need to get done, that we need to get done as a program, that I think you'd be shocked to know how little I think about it or sit around and worry about how it's going to play itself out. It truly is just trying to win this one and win another one, and let the chips fall where they fall, at the end of the season.
Right. Very good, Kellen. One thing, I think this is probably a question for both of you guys. One thing that I had intended to ask you in weeks past as well is, obviously you grew up with a father as a head coach, and it is just kind of in your blood. Talk to me a little bit about some of these guys from the Bulldogs program. Probably dudes you would have recruited who have gone on to coach at the high school level. We got a couple former Bulldogs in Milan and just sprinkled around throughout. Talk to me a little bit about this program producing some guys who have gone on to coach.
Well, I think I think I'll plug our first thing that comes to my mind is plugging our MAE program. It's if you want to get a degree and, want to get into teaching and coaching, I think it's a great school to come do that at, with the 5-year program and walking out of here with your master's and your teaching certification. So it's a great place to come to school from that standpoint. And then, I'd probably kick it back over to Dad. His coaching tree in general, from guys that he's worked with over the years, specifically here at Truman, the staffs that he put together have branched off and are doing pretty well, around right now. And you hope to do the same when you're trying to show up every day and coach with character, trying to be consistent, trying to teach a brand of ball that works. You hope that soaks in You hope you have some sponges that then can go on, and pay it forward as it go. And I think that's happened both with guys that have been on the staff and then guys that have played in the program as well. They're now, I think the best way I can phrase it is paying it forward, as they're out there now working with other kids in other areas and other communities and showing how to be competitive and how to do it with character and do it the right ways. And yeah, I think it's been pretty cool to see.
I think from my perspective, obviously I'm at the tail end. This is year 46 that I'm completing coaching. Can't even, my mind can't I don't feel that way, but it's, I'd like for God to give me another 46. I don't think that's going to happen. But I've been blessed, Henry, to be in what I believe to be the greatest relationship business, certainly one of the greatest relationship businesses in the world, in coaching young people. It's been, God has allowed me an opportunity to live a life of impact. And it's been both negative at times, things I like to do over, but it's also been a lot of positive impact through the years. And there's nothing more pleasing. I'm coaching and recruiting. When I was here, I'm recruiting kids, dads that I coached, and now coaching grandkids of guys that I coached, that type of thing. And there's nothing that pleases me more than young people who have enjoyed their experience enough to go ahead and try and pay it forward, as Kellen just said, some of the good things that they felt like they were blessed to have. And, at this stage, I don't even know how many kids, 15 to 20, have become head coaches. You've had guys that are coaching high school football, college football, professional football, and you'd like to think, your arrogance would like to think that there's a little piece of you at all those places. There's probably not, but that's what the human element is. But you're like a proud grandfather or father at this stage with the old adage, it's a small world. We get smaller and smaller, the more maturity or more age your dad and I put together. Somebody knows somebody from somewhere along the line. But I'm very, very pleased with the guys that have went on. Tickles me to death.
Question for both of you guys, probably Greg, more for you. Earlier this year, a fun one, when Quincy came to town, Jason Kilday being back in town. I know he's somebody that you guys both have tremendous respect for as a human being and as a football coach, but just opportunities like that are presented to people who have come from your coaching tree. Talk a little bit about what it's like to maybe compete against some of those guys that you've seen along the way over time.
I'd say like that one, for me personally, Kellen will have to answer for himself. That's not easy. And obviously, blood's thicker than water, so you're all dogs. But to that point, like 2 years ago, I didn't go to Quincy. And the reason it's right down the road, I didn't want to see either one of them after a loss. And obviously, I'm rooting for Kellen and the dogs. This has been a special place to Greg, Jackie, folks like your dad for 45 to 50 years. I met my wife here in 1979 and came back and coached here with Eric Holm, a good friend of you and your dad, 90 through 92. And been back here for another 15. So what's that? 20 plus years of a 67-year-old life at this stage in Kirksville, Missouri. So, at any rate, it's been a good run.
I think because you got Andy Ball at Missouri S&T too. You forget that he was on our staff before, and on the day of, the amount of work, and the amount of effort that goes into each game and each opponent and each season, all the off season, everything into it. When you're on the losing end, we've talked about this so much. Sometimes you get to the point it's almost unhealthy. You hate the losing more than you enjoy the winning, and there's some truth to it as you're going. So as much as I want to beat those guys, my heart literally breaks for them, as they've got the loss. So it's not that enjoyable other than we did achieve the goal, of 1-1, but it's like having a family member that's, how much they put into it on their end. And I guess the only solace is there's a little bit of better them than me, I guess, as you're going into it. But it's no fun because I know those guys are working hard at it and good ball coaches. Now they got to go back to the drawing board. But it's also there's bigger pictures. And, after each one of those games, me, Coach Kildad and I hung out for half an hour down in Pershing Gym while they're getting their stuff together, and then we're on the phone the next day debriefing, and the same thing with Coach Ball. And they're all good men that I do have a bigger picture than just winning and losing football games. So we're able to stay very, very tight no matter what happens in those contests.
I love that. And that speaks a lot to your point, Greg, about the relationship business. The outcome of a football game is one thing, but just kind of the fraternity of coaches, especially in our part of the world. Who else am I not thinking of who is out there at the Division II or even high school level?
I mean, you got to mention my brother, Ryan, the youngest son, is the head coach at Jackson, currently undefeated, getting ready to make a district run right now. You got Jed Paulson was our original line coach. He's head coach at Blue Springs High School over in Kansas City, and they won their first round district game, I believe, last week, and are still alive and going. Jay Davis is coaching down in Clearwater, Florida, as the head high school coach and athletic director. He was our original offensive coordinator. And then player-wise, Nick Reichert's the head coach. What high school in
Wisconsin?
Head coach in Wisconsin. He jumps right to the name. I mean, Milan, the whole staff. You got Dom Dabney, Ben Miller, and Kyle Spratt are all coaching at Milan High School, right now. I mean, there's so many. There's, as Jake Floyd's the defense coordinator down at Rockbridge right now for them.
Ethan Allen, Clark County, Scotty Stevens at Brookfield. High school-wise, Justin Conyers, our coach in high school, is now the head coach at Hickman, Cedric Alb. Henry, I'd have to get a name test. And for me, I'll bet you there's 40 or 50. Truman, not coaching, but Jordan Brown is on the fast track. He's a player personnel for the Oakland Raiders. I wouldn't be surprised or shocked if he's not an athlete or a general manager at some point in his career, and I hesitate to bring anybody's name up because, could be 5 others I'm thinking of, and I can't dog on me.
It's a lot.
When you that's very fair. When you do it for as long as you have done it, you get to, we're not talking 6 degrees of separation. We're talking just 2 degrees of separation from every name that you could possibly think of. What did those, the guys in Milan, did they kind of go in as a unit, or is that kind of a pipeline, or how exactly did that work out for their coaching staff?
I'm not. Do you know? I'm not.
I was talking to Ben because I'd hoped to get him hired at Kirksville High, and part of me, the father and me, all these guys, you're never ready, and I think getting a mentor as a young guy is important. But he went up and interviewed, and I think did a really good job. He's a mature guy, so would interview well, and got given that job. And then John Dabney, obviously, Dom, his dad, John, is coaching running backs for Kellen. I was a long time head coach there, and his John's wife, Audra, is still coaching there. So there were some ties there to get them going, and I think Dom's in special education, and Ben will be fantastic strength and conditioning. He's a fit guy and was really into player development type stuff. So I know they've had a tough year, but they'll get it going there.
Specifically, just wanted to hit on Milan a little bit just because of the geographic relevance to us. And those are some names that people who are listening to this broadcast would probably recognize and not necessarily realize that they were former Bulldog. Where do you guys, where do you specifically, I'll start with you first, Craig. I know that this is a group of kids that you love and have bought into it, and they are solid in the classroom and have bright futures. What are some of their popular interests, and what are some ways that outside of the realm of football, you kind of offer them your tutelage and insight as to just how life works?
You're talking about the high school kids?
Your kids, yeah.
One of the things, it's a different dynamic, Henry, when you're not in the building. I'm retired in public ed in 2005. So I'm not teaching in the building, and to some degrees, you lose that everyday relationship, if you will, and rubbing shoulders. So I'm missing that part of it. And I think the kids are too. You hope you make up for it a little bit from a football standpoint. But I drive these guys up about a lot of different things throughout the day, and they keep me young for certain. They're a trip from an old guy's perspective. Like, well, his son Blake is a sophomore now, 15. In about those age, the 14, 15, 16-year-old guys, some days they're 25 and some days they're 10, and they're just like you and I were, and that's kind of fun. I think it's good with my experience, and I hope it's good that I recognize that. And, don't beat them up too badly, for their age. So I don't know. I don't know how much I'm actually able to help them with a lot of stuff. Hopefully, just through work ethic and, to your point, I love to hear the word trying to coach with character, be a man of character. The best type of leadership is by example. So you're hoping you're doing that to some degree, even at this age.
I think I'd just jump in that, one of the things that drew me into this profession, obviously, was having a dad growing up, watching him every single day. But, he's been doing this forever, but he always used to talk about how he felt like football was the greatest classroom, the greatest fraternity. Like it kind of lumps all those things. It truly is a learning experience that if you're doing it the right way, and you're wise in the right place from a coaching standpoint, playing standpoint, but when you're in it, and it's not just football, just sport in general. We're sports people. I love sports. I love coaching. I love getting guys in competitive. It's the lessons, what we're learning and what we're teaching on football might not specifically go into where a kid's moving next, but certainly it helps you. If you learn what commitment is, if you learn what selflessness is, if you learn what preparation and the importance of daily preparation, this stuff leads into work. It leads into your families. It leads into your community. It leads into your churches. So I think it's a profound impact. And then the more you get to know these kids, and his age, he'll forget what he had for breakfast yesterday. But I promise you, there's guys coming in, opening up on a day-to-day basis, and you're learning more about these guys than you realize as you show them how much you care, and you show them you're in the foxhole with them. And all of a sudden you'll have a guy sitting at your desk opening up about something that's happening at the home, something that's happening with his faith, something that's happening, whatever it is, and getting those little opportunities to expand beyond, the X's and O's and the scheme. But it's just so cool to me in this profession how it all kind of intertwines, from that standpoint. And shoot, he does it so naturally at this point, but it's what motivated the people like me to go ahead and jump into the profession, because there's so much more going on, and then extremely competitive. It's still trying to be 1-0, but there's a lot more going on than just the wins and the losses on a week to week and a day to day.
And the challenge that you guys face in a much different way. Really, that unless a kid quits or doesn't want to play anymore, football's not for them. Let's say he's a sophomore, unless his parents move, he'll be back here as a junior. The challenge over the course of the past handful of years that you've had to face is the realistic possibility that at any given time, a player has free reign to leave or find better opportunities. Talk a little bit about what kind of adversity that presents in general.
I think that's such a loaded, we're not going to cover all the basis on that. It just, when you get down to the strategy of it, I think in coaching in this era of college football, you better be good at teaching and delivering your system in a hurry, because you need to get guys ready faster than maybe even 20 years ago when we were at University of Central Missouri, and the system was kind of recruit them, redshirt them, play them a little bit by year 2, and by year 3, they're ready to go. I don't know if that's really the model anymore. You better have a system that you can get guys taught and going in a hurry, because there is a little bit more of a revolving door, from that standpoint. And that's just one little aspect of it. I think that you're trying to develop culture, which is, again, such a loaded word. What's that even mean? But when the culture's strong, the right people stay on the bus and the right people get off the bus, as they go. So it takes care of itself, from that standpoint as well. So that's just a couple, off the top. There's a lot. That's there's a lot going on in the recruiting world and the transfer portal world and all those kinds of things. So.
At Truman State University, I think that you are in a fortunate position comparatively because there are so many kids on your roster who are here for academics. They're here for football, of course, but they are here for reasons that transcend football a little bit too. Talk to me a little bit about how your roster is constructed in that regard and what recruiting looks like. Speaking with a kid who might want to be pre-med or something like that.
I think it's been a recruiting advantage. It's one of the first things that people mention. Is it more difficult to recruit? And I think it's better to recruit. It gives you something. You know, I grew up in Columbia, Missouri, playing at Columbia Hickman High School. I grew up watching Missouri Tigers, and that's where I wanted to go play. Was University of Mizzou. And then when I realized that I wasn't blessed with University of Mizzou talent, all of a sudden your eyes start opening up to D2 schools. It's not like you grew up watching them on CBS or SEC Network or all that kind of stuff, you know. So all of us D2 schools are trying to find something that makes us distinctive versus each other. And what makes Truman State distinctive is our academic reputation. So if we've got a good, high character, high competitive athlete that's going to be a D2 caliber player and he's taking care of business in the classroom, we've got something to offer you that maybe another state school somewhere else wouldn't have. And certainly we have a more affordable price than what a private school with a similar education would. So I think it gives us, you got to go after the kid that fits you. And then I think it gives us a competitive advantage.
One of the last real football focused things I wanted to ask you is from the beginning of your tenure to now, kind of inheriting a brand new coaching staff and kind of building something together. Just tell me a little bit all of the things that have gone into from week one of your first season to now, as far as a coaching staff being more cohesive and more on the same page and all those types of things.
You know, there's been so much changes. I'm going from an assistant to a head coach, and everybody says that, and there's only really one way to do it, and that's rip off the Band-Aid and do it. Like, you got to get the experience of head coaching. So there's been so many new things, but one of the newest was the hiring process. You know, I've sat in on some interview stuff, but ultimately that was Dad. I had a little, seat at the table for sure, and I got to see it happen, but it wasn't certainly anything that I was losing any sleep about. So, it was on him. It was his plate, and then since he retired and I took over, I've had to hire 7 coaches in a 2-year run. So we've learned quick and through some luck, through just, God blessing me and putting the right people into my life. The staff has been just exceptional. And the fastest thing I've learned when you're trying to be in charge of anything or be a head coach is you can't, it's all about the staff. It's all about the people. There's too many balls to juggle in the air at once, and the trust you have to have in the people you're working with and the people you're working with, willingness to carry the vision and then be themselves. So it's been, without question, the best part of it has been the staff. It's an unbelievably professional staff. It's one of the hardest working staffs. So it makes coming to work the best. Between that and the roster of just a bunch of great kids, this really isn't work. This is fun. It's a lot of hours, but this is fun, and they're just unbelievably good people to work with, and that's why you're seeing a good product. When you're out there is just how good those guys are doing.
Very good. Anything you'd add to that, Greg?
No, not at all.
Does it provide any unique challenges or anything like that you guys are just kind of sequestered in your own football office at DPS instead of being over there in Pershing?
No, we probably don't meet the dress code all the time. I'm in flips quite a bit. I got to put my shoes on when I got to go see people, kind of thing. So I shaved a little bit for you today. I was probably a little scruffy as out there. So you get used to not having to see anybody else, but that's about it. So.
And just as far as backtracking a little bit to this being a special place for both of you guys, as you mentioned, obviously this is where you met Jackie. This is where some of your formative years took place in Kirksville, Missouri. Just talk about this place a little bit and just this university and just how special it is to have the degree of continuity that you guys have had over the course of the past now 14 years, I believe.
Yeah, 14, 15 years.
Since the time you returned, just having that continuity, what does that mean?
Well, I can't express on an emotional level, a heartfelt level. I had no idea. 18-year-old kiddo coming from Hannibal, walking on in football, didn't even know if I could play, Henry. Having a excellent collegiate career, getting to play on good football teams, and the relationships I formed there. I mean, three other original roommates up until we lost one 2 years ago. We texted nearly every day. I'm talking 50 years later, 45 to 50. So that alone made this a special place. Had an opportunity to meet Jackie. When coaches say they've outkicked their coverage, anybody that's been around us for any short period of time says, no, he's telling the truth. Because she's the real head coach, and he would tell you that. She's sharp as attack, and I tell everybody with everything other than her spousal selection. And then it's, coming back here, coaching with Coach Holm, one of the all-time greats in the 90s from a competitive standpoint. We won 23 games as a player, 23 games as an assistant coach, and a part of 89 wins as a head coach on the ninth winningest Division II college football program in the country, the number 1 or 2 Division II football program in Missouri, 15 NCAA football playing schools. It's south of us in Northwest Missouri. You're talking about Don Perot, a Perot Stadium that developed the wing T, split T here in the 30s during the Depression. They won 30-some games and beat Mizzou, and Mizzou fired their coach and hired him. And we're right now with Kellen taking over in the midst of best competitive run since Don Perot coached here. And this is a rich, storied football program. And you throw it into the academic excellence, I can go on and on, but this has been an indescribable, special place for the Nesbitts. And I'm glad Kellen was offered by John Ware, a good friend of you and the dad for certain, one of his best friends, and Eric spurned him for Willick Fritz at UCM. And Jackie and I both thought he'd be here, so I'm so glad he got to come back where Jackie and I started. And I wish in some ways that Ryan would have. I'm very proud of what he's done, not just here, but overall. He passed me up 5 or 6 years ago. He's an outstanding young football coach, and no longer young, in his profession. And Ryan could arguably be the best of his three, and it's just killing. And so I'm very, it's just been an unbelievable blessing from, I started here in fall of 1976 to get me to this spot. And what year are we? 2025, it ran to 26. So, been a great ride.
Kind of, when you look back at all of it over the course of the best part of 50 years, just kind of how did we get here?
Yeah. Maybe it's just your dad and I would go a snap of the fingers, or Mark Martin, who was a good friend, Logan was playing for me this year as the running back, and people of our age, it just, we still think we can do some of those things. That's all we can do is think.
What would you have to say to that point?
I think, you get hit the nail on the head as you're visiting is how fast it goes. I mean, it's hard to believe. I mean, Blake was a month old. We were living in an apartment. I don't even know what they were called over there on the corner of La Harp and Patterson with me, you, and Jed, and trying to put a recruiting class together back in 2010, and then, grabbed a place at Woodwinds and moved Audrey and 1-month-old Blake to Woodwinds Apartments, and you just think it's a job and you're getting started, and you blink and it's 15 years later, and Blake's a sophomore in high school at Kirksville High, and Bryce is in middle school, and it's just it's truly home. I mean, it's as long as I've ever been anywhere in my life, at this point. And Truman's been fantastic. The football program, the athletic department's been fantastic. The community, the friends that I've made here now, through my church at Rehoboth, and just it's my life was forever altered, and you don't even know, when you jump in a car in a U-Haul and you're headed road to Kirksville, Missouri, and it's just, you have no idea. And then 15 years later, I can be more thankful that's worked out the way it has.
And whenever this season might wrap up, hopefully not until late December, but whenever the season might wrap up, what does the off season look like for you aside from the recruiting trail?
It's fast. There's really not you just jump right into it. We're already, you're kind of dipping your toe into recruiting all the time, and it's getting closer as we're trying to hit the ground running. Our heavy recruiting season is November, December, January, signing dates in February. So it's a season of its own from a coaching standpoint. The players will get a little downtime. They'll start to get their bodies back. It's a long physical season. Rehab what needs to get rehab, start doing some light training to get their legs up underneath of them. Because when we come back in January is when we start training. It's a skill development sport, but above all, it's an athlete development sport. Bigger, faster, stronger wins, at this sport. So we'll hit that hard starting in January and trying to move the needle athletically with as many guys as we can.
And speaking about these dudes recovering when the off season does finally roll around, give a shout out a little bit to the athletic trainers and they do everything that goes into that.
Second to none, Michelle Boyd's a Hall of Famer. I mean, we're so blessed. It's not, you don't even think about it. She's the head coach in her own right, and it's literally not. You talk about all the different balls and all the different things, that you're juggling. One of them that's not one of them. She does an unbelievable, do a good job of getting guys back, and she's been really a good friend and obviously a fantastic professional at what she does. So.
And she's also, I think, phenomenally approachable to anybody in the community. She's not only does she do a great job for you guys, but I think she does an outstanding job of being front facing as somebody who leads that athletic training team.
You think about just like we're talking about the friends you make me, how many bus trips Michelle and I have been on, how many dumb movies we've watched, how many Golden Corrals we've been, so it's, we've been doing it. So.
Kind of covered the ground for everything else that goes in behind the scenes in terms of assistant coaching on the Truman end. But what about for you, Greg? Some of your assistant coaches who are maybe aspiring to do some of the things that we've talked about, maybe move on to bigger things in head coaching positions elsewhere across the state, et cetera, things like that.
Right now I'm putting together staff at the high school levels challenging, finding teaching positions and getting people into the district. It's still a work in progress. No question about it. I mean, on our staff this year, we had two former players. You got John Saxbury from Monroe City, who's been working for Drew Rentschler and has done a really good job for Drew. And Drew was gracious enough to allow him to coach. He's not in the building. He's a corporate painter for Drew. And Isaiah Estes, Fayette, Missouri. He was a great player for us. I had opportunity to coach linebackers for Kellen, and Isaiah so I got he's in our room. I'm not my guy in our room. He took over our defense. Wolf District John is getting married, and his wife just took a job in St. Louis as a Edward D. Jones. I don't know what his
financial with those. We were a franchise manager.
She's going to have her own office there. Well, John was picking up and moving, and we knew that. In fact, she's already there. So he just stuck around to coach us this year. And Isaiah, like a lot of young guys, was trying to figure out what direction we go. And he and I'll sit down, break bread, visit. And in the district, Cadron Edwards, I think is a young star. I think he's going to have an opportunity to be a head coach. Hopefully here. It certainly wouldn't hurt my feelings to see him knowing himself take over. And unfortunately, that's going to be sooner than later, just with age, nothing else. And he's worked tremendously hard. And James Price has now been at it for 7 or 8 years with Coach Kriegmeyer prior to me. And James just got into the district just this fall. So I think that's a big boost. I think we've been there with the kids. And then Cruz Lewis was in first year. He's going to be our head baseball coach and just graduated from Northwest Missouri this summer. And Cruz is a Macon boy, and he's a worker, smart kiddo. And so he's also at district. So I think all those guys can grow. And then our other coach was Connor Scott, who is just a builder in the community. He had a really good high school experience. So it was a learning curve for us. So it's certainly not ideal. You're hiring these guys here. When I was at Hickman High School, we really worked my last high school job, 20-some years ago. You definitely had a seat at the table with academic teachers, and it wasn't us versus them. The academic teachers worked with us, the other discipline stuff, teamwork. is still the ultimate competitive advantage. It always has been, always will. And so we'll see how that goes as you move forward. We had Mason Swisher a year ago, and Swish went to Quincy as a D coordinator over there, and then Brian Mayer was with us for 1 year. He's now a principal, so you had a couple guys already moving in and out. So I think the jury will be out. I think we spread these guys. I'm not certain where I'm at that development. I don't know how good of a job I'm doing, quite honestly. So.
Coach Lewis, of course, the new baseball coach, and Coach Edwards he helps with track, right?
Yes.
And so you have multiple coaches who see that talent in different sports aside from football and kind of have their toes in there. Swisher, of course, was the golf coach last year at the same time. Do you feel like that goes a long way to have coaches on your staff who coach other sports?
Absolutely. School this size, it's just the same as what Kellen's talking about, trying to recruit not football players, but competitors. And obviously you got to recruit football players, but you want highly competitive people. And I think having these guys evaluate, seeing guys in different lights, we may be really good in one sport, not so good in another. That's a great learning experience, and seeing how those guys react or go, where their growth needs to occur or where they're growing. I think it's invaluable having guys building. So, and they're, Cadron and Cruz are two really good. Cruz just didn't speak wet for this first year, but he's a young star. He's a worker, and I'm all about work ethic. We tell you we're built on work, toughness, and accountability. So if you struggle in one of those areas, you're going to struggle around me for certain.
What about your staff, Kellen? Does anybody teach or coach on your coaching staff?
Nobody teaches. I mean, you got John Dabney, retired at Milan, is coaching our running backs. And then I think the teacher shortage, I think he's been kind of pushed back into it. It's kind of a financial situation that he couldn't say no to, because he's still getting his retirement and he's getting a salary. So it's been a good gig for him. And so I've been very thankful he's been willing to make the trip daily, and come over and have that experience, and he's done a good job. But he's the only one. Everybody else is full-time football coach. That's all they do.
Yeah, sure. That was kind of my assumption. That's pretty much par for the course. For team schools. Yep. Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it greatly. This is Henry Jansen, sports writer for the Kirksville Daily Express, here with Coach Greg Nesbitt, Kirksville High School football, head coach Kellen Nesbitt, Truman State University football. This has been Raining Cats and Dogs. Thank you guys very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you next week.